Okay, this is in our book, Vane, this is page 33.
Okay, great.
So, I was saying that Portia is introduced here in a very, let's say, I mean, rather innocently, because we don't know anything about her. We don't know who she is or why she's there in the kitchen. But when she starts, when the description develops, we get that Portia is also a black woman, yes, and that is the very, because she's telling the other baby, no, and that is the very reason why I'm a whole lot more fortunate than most colored girls, Portia said as she opened the door. Why? Asked Mick. So Portia is in the middle of a conversation, let's say, with Bubber, the little boy, and Mick arrived. Of course, she's in the kitchen because she's the one who cleans the house and cooks. Portia and Bubber were sitting at the kitchen table eating their dinner. Portia's green print dress was cool looking against her dark brown skin. She had on green earrings and her hair was combed very tight and neat. And she tells Mick, you all time pounce in on the very tail of what somebody say and then want to know all about it. Claro, because she's talking to Bubber and Mick wants to know what they are talking about. So she says, Bubber and me was just talking about my grandpa's home out on the old Sardis Road. I was telling Bubber how he and my uncles owns the whole place themselves. 15.5 acres. That's why I sent you the information of how many.
See how many
Claro,
hectares is
to have an idea, no? It was a small place, but, well, here she says that they have cotton, they have peas, they have hens, they have a vegetable patch, pecan trees, plenty figs and plums and berries. So they produce things there, no? Peaches too. This here is the truth. Not many white farms has done with their land good as my grandpapa. So Mick starts listening to Portia, and it says Portia had always rather talk about the farm than anything else, except about her husband and brother. We don't know yet, but this brother is the one who works at the bar, Willie.
Willie.
To hear her tell it, you wouldn't think that Colored Farm was the very White House itself. So for Portia, that farm is the White House itself. And she tells the story. The home started with just one little room, and through the years, they done built on until there's space for my grandpapa, his 4 sons and their wives and children, and my brother Hamilton. In the parlor, they have a real organ and a gramophone. And on the wall, they have a large picture of my grandpapa taken in his lodge uniform. They cans all the fruit and vegetables, and no matter how cold and rainy the winter turns, they pretty near always have plenty to eat. So you see that she's very proud of the farm. Yes, obviously, and she has a right to be proud. And Mick asks, why come you don't go live with them then? Well, this is the question. Portia stopped peeling her potatoes and her long brown fingers tapped on the table in time to her words. This here the way it is. See, each person done built on his room for his family. They all done worked hard during all these years. And of course, times is hard for everybody now. But see, I lived with my grandpapa when I were a little girl, but I haven't never done any work out there since. Anytime, though, if me and Willie and Highboy gets in bad trouble, us can always go back. This is important because later on, they will have to go back. Yes, because they will have trouble. Didn't your father build on a room? And now she will talk about her father. Who is her father? The black doctor that we met at the bar before. Mm? So you see how
Oh.
these characters are all connected. Mm?
Mm.
Whose father? You mean my father? Sure, said Mick. You know good and well, my father is a colored doctor right here in town. So now we have the complete family. The doctor that we just met at the bar, Copeland, is Portia's father and Willie's father.
Ah.
That's why when we talked about Willie at the bar, I said that he was the doctor's son. Mm? Mika had heard Portia say that before, but she had thought it was a tale. How could a colored man be a doctor?
This is terrible. That gives us an idea of the situation, no?
Claro, for Mick it was a tale, it was a story, because
Yeah.
a
Because
colored,
there are the universities for black people
claro, but
at that time, but
at that,
maybe they didn't know.
no, and in the south of the United States, because perhaps some colored people studied, but in New York, yes, but in the south of the United States, it
No,
was
no,
more
north, in the
difficult.
west, of course,
Remember
but
that the black man, the doctor, could not enter the bar. You remember that he
yeah,
entered and he left?
and left running almost. Yeah.
Yes, and then the other men who were there got angry at the drunk because he had invited a black man into the bar, and they told
Yeah,
him, "Don't you know that this bar is only for white people?" So of
yeah.
course it was very unusual for a colored man to be a doctor, no? And so Portia explains. This here the way it is. Before the time my mama married my father, she had never known anything but real kindness. My grandpapa is Mr. Kind himself, but my father is different from him as day is from night. Mean? Asked Mick. No, he's not a mean man, Portia said slowly. It's just that something is the matter. So again we meet another character who has certain problem, let's say. Something is the matter, no? Como the same as beef, the same as brown, the same as, I mean, everybody has something. My father, not like other colored men's. This here is hard to explain. My father all the time studying by himself. And a long time ago, he'd taken up all these notions about how a family ought to be. He bossed over every little thing in the house, and at night he tried to teach us children lessons. So you see, her father, the doctor, was different. And Mick says, that doesn't sound so bad to me. Claro, if he studies and he teaches his children, it sounds okay. Listen here, you see, most of the time he were very quiet. But then some nights he would break out in a kind of fit. He could get madder than any man I ever seen. Everybody who know my father say that he was a sure enough crazy man. He done wild, crazy things, and our mama quit him. I were 10 years old at the time. Our mama taken us children with her to grandpapa's farm, and us were raised out there. So you see, the doctor was unusual, not only because he was a doctor, but also because he had something. He had fits. He became crazy, and, well, the mother abandoned him with the two children. Our father all the time wanted us to come back. But even when our mama died, us children never did go home to live. And now my father stay all by himself. So you see, the story is a rather unusual story, no?
Yeah.
I doesn't see my father much, maybe once a week, but I done a lot of thinking about him. I feel sorrier for him than anybody I knows. I expect he done read more books than any white man in this town. He done read more books and he done worried about more things. He full of books and worrying. He done lost God and turned his back to religion. All his troubles come down just to that. So Portia's explanation about his father's, let's say, madness is that he abandoned God, he abandoned religion, and he studied and studied and studied, and that he worried too much. We start to feel a similarity with the drunk, because he also read a lot, and worried a lot. So you see, there are certain similarities. Portia was excited. Whenever she got to talking about God or Willie, her brother, or Highboy, her husband, she got excited. And then so Portia, yes, you said something? No. So Portia explained that she belongs to the Presbyterian Church. And she didn't do all this rolling on the floor and talking in tongues. No. They sing and they let the preacher do the preaching. So she goes to church, but not to the church where they shout and speak in languages and all that. And tell you the truth, I don't think a little singing and a little preaching would hurt you, Mick. So Portia also wants Mick to go to church, yes? You ought to take your little brother to the Sunday school, and also you plenty big enough to sit in church. From the biggity way you've been acting lately, it seemed to me like you already got one toe in the pit. So Portia is also saying that Mick is different from before, and that Portia thinks that she needs to go to church. And look at Mick's answer, nuts. So for her, this is madness, no? She says, I don't believe in God any more than I do in Santa Claus. So Mick is very rebellious. You wait a minute. That's why it sometimes seemed to me you favor my father more than any person I ever knowed. So favor in the sense of you are similar to my father. So for Portia, Mick is similar, or yes, has certain ideas like her father. Yes. Well, so both of them are rather mad. There is something happens to them. Me, you say I favor him. I don't mean in the face or in any kind of looks. I was speaking about the shape and color of your souls. So Portia has this question of religion, no? And well, of course, there is a connection, because we know we have already met all the freaks. Biff, the drunk, the doctor, Singer, and Mick. So all of them have something in common. They are very special. They are different, yes? And so she says, folks like you and my father who don't attend the church can never have near peace at all. Now, take me here. I believe and I have peace. And Bubber, he has his peace too. And my Highboy and my Willie likewise. And it seemed to me just from looking at him, this here Mr. Singer has peace too. I done felt that the first time I seen him. O sea, the idea is that Singer is also a peaceful man, but the problem is, of course, because he's deaf. So his peace comes from his inability to hear and speak, no? Have it your own way, Mick said. You are crazier than any father of yours could ever be. So the way the girl answers is, no? But you haven't never loved God nor ever near a person. You hard and tough as cowhide. But just the same, I knows you. This afternoon, you going to roam all over the place without never being satisfied. You go into tribes all around like you have to find something lost. You going to work yourself up with excitement. Your heart going to beat hard enough to kill you because you don't love and don't have peace. And then someday you're going to bust loose and be ruined. Won't nothing help you then? What Portia, Bubber asked. What kind of things does he eat? So he doesn't understand because he's a very little boy and he cannot follow. Yes, Portia. But Portia knows that Mick has this, insatisfaction, that she goes all over the place. She goes to the streets because she doesn't feel well. So that is something that Portia understood. Well, finally, Mick did not want to go back into the rooms where the family stayed. She did not want to talk to the boarders. No place was left but the street. And this is, the problem. She doesn't have a place for herself in the house. So she has to go out, yes? And that's why it says that Portia had a certain kind of niggery craziness. This is Mick. Mick's thought. It's very funny. Portia had a certain kind of niggery craziness. Un poco de locura de negro, ¿sí? But she was okay. She never would do anything mean to Barbara or Ralph on the sly like some colored girls. But Portia had said that she never loved anybody. Mick stopped walking and stood very still, rubbing her fist on the top of her head. What would Portia think if she really knew? Just what would she think? She had always kept things to herself. That was one sure truth. Because Portia said, you have never loved anybody. And so Mick says, well, she doesn't know. Well, so Mick goes out and she wants to go to Miss Brown's room because if she turns on the radio, she could hear the music. Remember that this woman had a radio. She she put her head on her knees, tied knots in the string of her tennis shoes. What would Portia say if she knew that always there had been one person after another? So this is also funny because as a girl, she had been in love with one person after another, with different people, but she never said anything, no? But she had always kept it to herself and no person had ever known. Well, that day, Miss Brown did not turn on her radio, and there was nothing but the noises that people made. She thought a long time and kept hitting her thighs with her fists. Her face like it was scattered in pieces and she could not keep it straight. The feeling was a whole lot worse than being hungry for any dinner. Yet it was like that. I want was all that she could think about. But just what this real want was, she did not know. I like this because this is the description of how you feel when you are an adolescent, no? This anxiety, no? This lack of comfort. You don't know what you want.
This anxiety for the future, no?
Yes, and you don't know what it is, but you feel bad, no? Well, finally, Mick looked up quickly and it was Mr. Singer. No, he stood in the hall for a few minutes and his face was sad and calm. Then he went across to the bathroom. His company did not come out with him. From where she was sitting, she could see part of the room, and the company, the company was the other man, was asleep on the bed with a sheet pulled over him. She waited for Mr. Singer to come out of the bathroom. Her cheeks were very hot, and she felt them with her hands. Maybe it was true that she came up on these top steps sometimes so she could see Mr. Singer while she was listening to Miss Brown's radio on the floor below. She wondered what kind of music he heard in his mind that his ears couldn't hear. Nobody knew. And what kind of things he would say if he could talk. Nobody knew that either, no? For Mick, Mr. Singer was a mystery.
Well, sorry?
A mystery.
A mystery, yes.
Because she doesn't know what he can imagine because he couldn't hear and he couldn't speak, no?
Yes.
So for her, he was really something mysterious, yes? Well, the hot afternoon passed slowly and Mick still sat on the steps by herself. This fellow Mozart's music was in her mind again. It was funny, but Mr. Singer reminded her of this music. So you see how she connects Mozart with Singer, no? She wished there was some place where she could go to hum it out loud. Some kind of music was too private to sing in a house crammed full of people. It was funny too how lonesome a person could be in a crowded house. Yes, because the house is full of people, but she feels alone. Mick tried to think of some good private place where she could go and be by herself and study about this music. But though she thought about this a long time, she knew it in the beginning and there was no good place. Okay? So we abandoned Mick there, yes, poor girl, on the stairs. Imagine she sat on the stairs and waited for Singer to appear or for Miss Brown to turn on the radio. Very, very sad, no? Late in the afternoon, Jake Blount awoke. So finally, go back to this character. You remember that he went to Singer's room. And, well, with the feeling that he had slept enough. He slept for hours. The room in which he lay was small and neat, furnished with a bureau, a table, a bed, and a few chairs. Of course, he doesn't know where he is, because when he went to the place, he was completely drunk. On the bureau, an electric fan turned its face slowly from one wall to another, and as the breeze from it passed Jake's face, he thought of cool water. By the window, as a man sat before the table and stared down at the chess game laid out before him. In the daylight, the room was not familiar to Jake, but he recognized the man's face instantly, and it was as though he had known him a very long time. So when he awakes, he's there. Singer is playing chess with himself. Many memories were confused in Jake's mind. He lay motionless with his eyes open and his hands turned palm upward. His hands were huge and very brown against the white sheet. When he held them up to his face, he saw that they were scratched and bruised. You remember that before going to the bar again, he was in the street making a
And
fuss.
he had hit the wall.
Yes, exactly. He hit the wall, so that's why but he doesn't remember, of course, no? But his hands were hurt. The veins were swollen, as though he had been grasping hard at something for a long time. His face looked tired and unkempt. His brown hair fell down over his forehead and his mustache was hoary. Even his wing-shaped eyebrows were rough and tousled. As he lay there, his lips moved once or twice, and his mustache jerked with a nervous quiver. Well, so finally he sits up and he says, "God, I'm thirsty. I feel like the whole Russian army marched through my mouth in its stocking feet." This comparison is so funny, and this is one of Jake's characteristics, no? When he makes a comparison, the comparison are always with enormous things, yes? Not with something, small. Always something terrible, tragic. In this case, he says that he is thirsty, that his thirst is like the whole Russian army marching through his mouth in his stocking feet, no? Well, claro, the man looked at him smiling, because Singer, we don't know if he understood. And then suddenly he reached down on the other side of the table and brought up a frosted pitcher of ice water and a glass. Jake drank in great panting gulps, standing half naked in the middle of the room. Instantly, certain recollections came to him. He couldn't remember coming home with this man. Claro, he was completely drunk. So now he cannot remember. But things that had happened later were clearer now. He had waked up soaking in a tub of cold water, and afterward they drank coffee and talked. He had got a lot of things off his chest, and the man had listened. He had talked himself hoarse, but he could remember the expressions on the man's face better than anything that was said. They had gone to bed in the morning with the shade pulled down so no light could come in. At first, he would keep waking up with nightmares and have to turn the light on to get himself clear again. The light would wake this fellow also, but he hadn't complained at all. How come you didn't kick me out last night? So Blount knows, he understands that this man has been very good to him because he had been completely drunk. The man took him to his room, made him go into the tub with water, and then the man talked and talked and talked, and Singer listened, let's say. He thought that he had listened. The man only smiled again. Jake wondered why he was so quiet. He looked around for his clothes and saw that his suitcase was on the floor by the bed. He couldn't remember how he had got it back from the restaurant where he owed for the drinks. His books, a white suit, and some shirts were all there as he had packed them. Quickly, he began to dress himself. An electric coffee pot was perking on the table by the time he had his clothes on. Claro, he doesn't understand how he came here, why his suitcase is there. For him, everything is very confusing. And so Singer writes a note. And now he tells him, I am a deaf mute, but I read the lips and understand what is said to me. Please do not shout. Yes? So now Jake, or Blount, understands. He has been talking to a man who is deaf. The shock made Jake feel light and vacant. He and John Singer just looked at each other. I wonder how long it would have taken me to find that out. Now, this is fantastic. Claro, me pregunto cuánto tiempo me hubiera tomado darme cuenta que era sordo. O sea, él nunca entendió que el otro era sordo. I mean, it's fantastic because he has
De
been
locos.
talking. Es de locos, ¿entendés? They are really, really unusual characters. He has been talking to Singer at the bar, no, before, for hours and hours, and never realized that the man was deaf. Well, Singer looked very carefully at his lips when he spoke. He had noticed that before, but a dummy, no? Mudo. They sat at the table, they have coffee, and Blount asks, are there any other deaf-mute people here, he asked. You have many friends. And this is a very important question. I mean, we understand, because his only friend, Antonopoulos, is not there anymore. Singer was still smiling. He did not catch on to the words at first, and Jake had to repeat them. Singer raised his sharp, dark eyebrows and shook his head. Find it lonesome, claro. He's alone. The man shook his head in a way that might have meant either yes or no. They sat silently for a little while, and then Jake got up to leave. He thanked Singer several times for the night's lodging, moving his lips carefully so that he was sure to be understood. The mute only smiled again and shrugged his shoulders. When Jake asked if he could leave his suitcase under the bed for a few days, the mute nodded that he could. Then Singer took his hands from his pocket and wrote carefully on a pad of paper with a silver pencil. I can put a mattress on the floor and you can stay here until you find a place. I am out most of the day. It will not be any trouble. Again, Singer's generosity, no? Giving him the possibility of staying there. But he couldn't accept. Thanks, he said. I already got a place. We know this is not true, but well. As he was leaving, the mute handed him a pair of blue overalls rolled into a tight bundle and 75 cents. So, he also gives him money. The money, Singer made him understand, had been in his pockets. Adios, Jake said. I'll be back sometime soon. He left the mute standing in the doorway with his hands still in his pockets. Again, no? Always this image of Singer's hands in the pockets and the half smile on his face. When he had got down several steps of the stairs, he turned and waved. The mute waved back to him and closed his door. Well,